Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. Have a dozen articles for you here this morning, and all the URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. Hope you had a wonderful Mother's Day and a great weekend. On them here, the first one's off of Liberty Writers, and it says, Donald Trump just got Israel and Palestine to agree on the impossible. And get it to scroll up a little bit here. It's a little slow. Says Donald Trump has done a heck of a lot as president. Nobody can deny that. Now the president has set his sights on the biggest international deal ever made, peace in the Middle East. That's right. By the Jerusalem Post, President Trump has gotten the leader of Palestine to agree with the leader of Israel. According to the JB Post, Mahmoud Abbas to Donald Trump during their meeting at the White House that he was ready to negotiate peace in person with Benjamin Netanyahu. Oh, and of course, they both want Trump. After all, he is the world's greatest negotiator. But President Abbas statement about his desire to negotiate with Israel and even declared Palestine was willing to cut new land deals to achieve lasting peace. One of the biggest points of contention between Israel and Palestine has long been the West Bank settlements, with the president of Palestine openly offering to back off a real path to peace now. This is all thanks to President Donald Trump. Style and long-standing relationship with this all possible. The article is off Breitbart. As soon as the hamster gets it up here on the page for me, on the screen. And it's coming right along here. Hamster, come on. Jordan blames Israel for ugly crime of killing terrorists in midst of stabbing. Need to scroll up a little bit more here. And she's going slow but sure. Jerusalem, instead of condemning terrorist attack carried out by, well, then it jumped a little bit too much to me. Waiting on the hamster to walk backward in the wheel just a few steps, little feller. Well, there we go. This is out of Jerusalem. It says, instead of condemning a terrorist attack carried out by a Jordanian citizen, Old City on Saturday, the Kingdom of Jordan blamed Israel for the ugly crime of an Israeli policeman defending himself by shooting the Jordanian assailant as the officer was being repeatedly stabbed. Now, if we can get it to scroll up a little bit more. Oh, I can see this is going to be a fun show. Fighting with a hamster. And it went all screwy on me for some reason. See if we can get the hamster to straighten himself up here. He's having some kind of an issue. Okay, Jerusalem police spokeswoman Luba Samiri explained the policeman was walking down a street near Lionsgate, an entrance to the Old City, when the officer was stabbed in the face and body by the Jordanian citizen, 57-year-old Mohammed Halim al-Khazaj. The terrorist rushed toward him that he had in his possession, stormed him, and began stabbing him. Responded with determination in a professional manner, managed to activate his weapon and neutralize the terrorist reporters. A second policeman was stabbed in the hand while helping to subdue the terrorist, who reportedly entered Israel several days ago. The Israeli police released graphic video of the attack. In this URL, if you want to pull it up and watch it. Khazajai clearly seen repeatedly stabbing the policeman who had been knocked to the floor. In Tel Aviv described the attack as an ugly crime. Jordan was referring to the policeman's self-defense and not to the reportedly unprovoked terrorist attack by one of its own citizens. Of communications, Mohammed Umam was quoted as saying, "The Israeli government power in Jerusalem bears responsibility for shooting of a Jordanian citizen or civilian who was killed." Failed to note that the terrorist Jai was killed while stabbing the officer. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu criticized the Jordanian statements. It is time that Jordan ceases its double-sided game. Just as Israel condemns terror attacks in Jordan, Jordan must condemn terrorist attacks in Israel. Terror is terror, Netanyahu said. The Times of Israel further reported terrorist attack. A police officer was taken to Jerusalem's Shar Medical Center in moderate condition after the incident near the Lions Gate. In the neck and head, and in stable condition when evacuated to the hospital. A second man was lightly wounded with cuts to the hand. Police arrested local merchant who they suspected prevented passersby from helping the policeman during the attack. The article is off of Conservative Tribune. Well, South Korean president vows to play nice with North Korea. Relationship, it says. Scroll up some. Crisis on the Korean Peninsula just got a whole lot more complicated. The sworn-in president of South Korea who's backed a softer line against North Korea in the past and has questioned the deployment of an American missile shield, is bitterly opposed by China, according to the region. Morning Herald, South Korean President Moon Jae-in inauguration speech to confirm that he would chart a different course on North Korea. A former human rights lawyer whose parents were refugees, the 64-year-old Moon was an advisor to South Korean governments that favored a sunshine policy of openness toward the militaristic communist regime to the north, the Daily Caller noted. In place from 1998 to 2006, the South donated massive amounts of food, aid, starving hermit kingdom, summits between leaders of the divided peninsula, and opened a joint industrial park region to foster cooperation between the two rival countries, according to the Washington Post. Families divided by the bloody warfare of 1950 to 1953 and the uneasy truce continued since, allowed family reunions in the border area. Turn approaches, North Korea continued its nuclear weapons program, conducted a nuclear test in 2006 that exploded the Sunshine Policy and any realistic hopes that North Korea would start behaving like a rational, peace-minded country. Apparently, undeterred, the president sounds like he wants to revive that failed approach. To solve the security crisis urgently, his inauguration speech. If needed, I will fly straight to Washington. I will also go to Beijing and Tokyo and even Pyongyang in the right circumstances. Some practical people, Moon has said he will review South Korea's crucial U.S. anti-missile program in his country that China objects to. The American deployment of the high altitude area defense missile shield has rankled China. His willingness to re-engage with the North already posed the risk of pulling the rug out from under American policy toward Pyongyang. What he does next is going to be crucial. Robert Kelly, professor at South Korea's Pusan National University, told the Sydney Morning Herald that Moon's speech was a sign of how he intends to govern, complicate things on the Korean Peninsula. He won't go along with Trump. Talk to North Korea, and he wants to go to Pyongyang, he told Fairfax Media. Say Moon Jae-in couldn't risk getting rid of the THAAD program entirely. Barricaded on this. If he pulls out, look like he is buckling to China and will be severely criticized by the conservative press, he said. Nothing compared to the criticism he'll be getting from the White House. The article is off of Western Journalism. Russian fighter jet comes within 20 feet to U.S. aircraft over the Black Sea. See if we can get this to scroll up a little bit more. Russian fighter jet came as close as 20 feet to a U.S. Navy reconnaissance. And it jumped a little bit. Flying in the Black Sea on Tuesday. The provocation came just one day prior to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's visit to Washington, D.C. Fish told Fox News the Russian jet flew close 8A Poseidon aircraft for 5 minutes. While this one was considered by the flight crew to be safe and professional, this sort of close encounter certainly has the possibility to become dangerous in a hurry, the defense official said. News spoke in Europe expounded on what safe and professional means for actions, distance, speed, altitude, rate of closure, visibility, and other factors impact whether an event is characterized as safe or unsafe. Not professional, Canoe said. Unique in any single variable does not define an event. Russian ministry, whoops, it jumped a little too much. Well, come on. Defense said their jet was carrying out a welcoming maneuver for the American aircraft to divert its flight path away from Russia's borders. Welcoming maneuver for the American pilots, after which the American recon airplane changed its flight course in the direction away from Russia's borders. Fighter jet safely returned to an airfield where it is based, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced in a statement. The Black Sea follows a series of Russian provocations off the coast of Alaska last week. The U.S. Air Force was forced on several consecutive nights to dispatch F-22 stealth fighter jets to intercept a pair of Russian Bear bombers and fighter jets. In February, Russian fighter jets buzzed the USS Porter, same warship which launched cruise missiles into a Syrian airfield last month. Days The week of April 17th, the U.S. Air Force intercepted Russian military aircraft spotted off the coast of Alaska. The provocations off the coast of Alaska followed proclamation by Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Russian relations were at a low point. We're not getting along with Russia at will. We may be at an all-time low in terms of relationship with Russia, added President Donald Trump at an April news conference. The article is off of Liberty Headlines, and it says, against cyber attacks on the power grid. The federal government to prepare for a devastating cyber attack against American electric grid amid growing fears foreign states are set to carry out attacks aimed at plunging the nation. President on Thursday directed key federal agencies preparations for a prolonged power outage resulting from cyber attacks designed to disrupt the power grid. The danger must be carried out by the Energy Department, Homeland Security, DNI, and state and local governments to examine the readiness of the United States to manage a shutdown of the power grid. The assessment will also identify gaps and shortcomings in efforts that would be used for. The new cyber security measures outlined in the executive order come as the commander of Cyber Command earlier that America's critical infrastructure is vulnerable to disruption by foreign cyber attacks. Admiral Mike Rogers said several nations, including Iran, have been tied to disruptions and remote intrusions into U.S. crucial infrastructures, such as the electric grid and others. Rogers said destructive cyber attacks on critical infrastructure are one of his two worst-case scenarios. The second involves the threat of cyber intrusion aimed at manipulating data within networks. Disrupt the function of a dam in upstate New York in 2013, and Russia has used industrial control malware called Black Energy to attack Ukraine's electric grid, infiltrations in the U.S. crucial structure. In light of incidents like these, can look like preparations for future attacks that could be intended to harm Americans, or at least to deter the United States and other countries from protecting and defending our vital interests, Rogers said. Next one that I have is says International Earthquake and Volcano Prediction Center press release. And this came out on the 12th, on Friday at 9:30 a.m. A hold of it yesterday. The International Earthquake start. And of the scope and scale of this threat is based on years of seismic and climate research by the IEVPC scientists. Of the book Evil: Why Catastrophic Earthquakes Will Soon Strike the United States. Scientists with extensive records of success in quake prediction, the book Upheaval lays out the case for an 80% chance of devastating earthquakes to hit the U.S. between 2017 and 2038. Letter emailed to Secretary Perry on May the 9th of 2017, IEBPC Chief Executive Officer Mr. John L. Casey of the research and book explains researchers at the IEBPC have detected three categories of earthquake activity, them to getting the word out threat. They have included strong correlations to historic quake patterns, solar activity linked to the worst earthquakes, and climate change, those within the Earth's crust that reach the surface in the form of large destructive quakes. 6.5. The letter to Secretary makes a strong warning of disastrous collateral damage to several regions of the United States as a result of earthquake shocks to existing nuclear facilities and power stations, as well as to nuclear waste and spent fuel rod storage facilities. To make important recommendations to mitigate the threat of catastrophic earthquakes to U.S. nuclear facilities. They include reviewing existing facilities to make sure they can withstand the new higher levels of quakes predicted in upheaval. IEVPC letter recommends the immediate relocation of all spent nuclear fuel from power stations and related nuclear waste. Yucca Mountain, Nevada site, earthquake safe nuclear waste storage facilities. Letter to Secretary Perry follows a similar warning issued by the IEVPC to the U.S. government, those states at high risk of catastrophic earthquakes. 2016 notification was made prior to the release of the book Upheaval. Research material, quake threat assessment by the IEVPC. Dr. Doug Choi, Director of Research at the IEVPC, the threat of highly destructive earthquakes from the west coast to the east coast of the USA is very real indeed. They show conclusively when the U.S. will be the most at risk of record magnitude earthquakes, activity and energy flows on predictable cycles. Wire journalist says on the cover of the book Upheaval that it is every American and every citizen of the planet Earth should read and heed. L. Casey, CEO of the IEVPC, adds the damage that could strike as soon as tomorrow indicate that many millions of Americans could experience earthquakes so large that the whole of the country and power for weeks at a time. Dr. Thomas Jordan, one of the country's most respected geologists, has said, for example, that Reyes is locked, loaded, and ready to roll. Backs up his belief in a devastating quake finally hitting California any day now. However, we believe that the threat is much worse than the estimated tens of thousands of dead, widespread destruction that are coming to both the Los Angeles and the San Francisco area. We're especially concerned with the Madrid seismic zone, SZ, in the center of our country, and how an expected M7.0 to an M8.0 earthquake only cause havoc. States around the try that again, around the NMSZ also shut off much of the Northeast fuel and gas that goes through pipelines in the NMSZ. This letter to Secretary Perry attempt to raise red flags about the additional quake-related threat to both energy supplies and to nuclear power stations and nuclear waste storage facilities. Loss of control over nuclear facilities from quake damage could add a whole new dangerous dimension. Massive loss we and others are forecasting. What we are saying is that our research demonstrates that multiple big ones are about to sweep across the U.S. between 2017 and 2038, as history shows has happened before. We should begin immediate preparations across the board country for this new era physical danger that has just begun. That's not a reason for prepping. I don't know what is. Emergency water supply. You should have some backup source in the wintertime that does not include coal. I mean, in the summertime, we can open the windows and doors and fan ourselves a palm frond or something to stay cool. winter time in the colder climates, you're going to need some heat. Better have you some sort of kerosene laid in for winter or whatever. I mean, if this isn't something for remote prepping, I don't know what is. You should always, always have an emergency plan in action. Check it every month or every couple weeks or something to make sure that you have supplies laid in, that you'll be able to cook if the electric's knocked out, that you'll be able to keep yourself warm if it's cold outside, that you'll have water in case the water gets shut off. Wells, if you don't have electric to run the pump in the well or some way to pump the water out of the well, you're going to be sorely lacking. So, it's something everybody needs. Next article I have here is off of Liberty Headlines. Keith Olbermann pleads agencies to take down Trump. GQ's Keith Olbermann posted his passionate appeal to help him overthrow our duly elected president. Intelligence agencies and the governments of what is left of the free world, Olby began dramatically to these entities, entireties, making official decisions, and to the individuals who make decisions of conscience. CHQ, MI6 in the UK, in Germany, the DGSE in France, the in Australia, and even the GRU in Russia, where they must already be profoundly aware that they have not merely helped a moral cynic, but an uncontrollable one whose madness is genuine and whose usefulness, even to them, is at an end. And to the world's journalists, I make a plea. Of the United States of America are the victims of a coup. We need your leaks, your information, your intelligence, your recordings, your videos, your conscience. And the military of the United States are no longer in the hands of these people, nor control of any responsible individuals on whom you can rely. And it goes on and on, but you get the picture. He's nuts. Magazine tweeted to the internal agencies of the world, we need your help. Gracious. Why is it when I picture him, I picture somebody chasing him with a net? A BizPack review. Up. Oh. Hamster to get this up on the page for me. But I have to goose the hamster. Chase him with a cattle prod. Well, okay. We'll try it a different way here. One in a hamster. We'll try it this way and see if this will bring it up. He's running as fast as he can go. Maybe I need to throw again. Some reason it ain't wanting to come up here on screen. I had it up a while ago. Now it ain't wanting to cooperate with me. I don't know what its problem is. The article is about ICE working at Travis Air Force Base. Maybe I'll just turn y'all loose on that one. It's down there in the description of the video if you want to pull it up and see if you can get it to work for you and read it. But she's not wanting to come up for me. The next one that we got on those BizPack reviews on my computer just are not wanting to cooperate with me for some reason. This one on view, at the second round of Somalis that were deported. And see if we can get him to scroll it up here for me. Well, and then of course it scrolls too much. It does. Reported a second round of Somali illegal immigrants who had been living in the U.S. along with a few Kenyan foreign nationals. Officials deported a total of 77 illegal immigrants to Somalia this month, according to a report by Information Center. Of the 77 illegal immigrants, 72 were Somali foreign nationals, while 5 of the illegal immigrants were from Kenya. Told the group of illegal immigrants were deported generally because of their immigration status. They were deported over immigration issues, including lacking papers. We had been informed of their planned arrival, officials said. Will proceed to Kenyans will be processed here accordingly. Now this one is deciding to give me some sort of fit. Trump's focus on deporting Somalis and other foreign nationals from the region is vastly different from the Obama administration, where only 170 Somalis were deported in his last 2 years in office. These Somalis were deported crimes or having their asylum requests rejected, as Breitbart Texas reported. Then it jumped all the way to the bottom. Okay. Somali's ambassador to the U.S., Ahmad Awad, said previous the number of Somalis the Trump administration is looking to deport is at least 4,000, with the vast majority not being currently held in immigration detention centers. Article. This is off of it says Germany confiscating homes to use for migrants on the property rights. In an unprecedented move, Hamburg authorities confiscated 6 residential units near the city center. Appointed by the city is now renovating and will rent them against the will of the owner to tenants chosen by the city. District spokeswoman Serena Weiland said that costs will be billed to the owner of the properties. Similar measures have been proposed in Berlin, but abandoned because they were deemed unconstitutional. Some Germans are asking what authorities now limit the maximum amount of living spaces per person and force those with large apartments to share them with strangers. Authorities in Hamburg, the second largest city in Germany, have begun confiscating private dwellings to ease housing shortage. Been acutely exacerbated by Merkel's decision to allow more than 2 million migrants into the country in recent years. Have been seizing commercial properties and converting them into migrant shelters since late 20. Merkel opened German borders to hundreds of thousands of migrants from Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. He is expropriating residential property units owned by private citizens. In move, Hamburg authorities recently confiscated 6 residential units in Ham District near the city center. The units, which are owned by private landlord, are in need of repair and have been vacant since 2012. A trustee appointed by the city is now renovating the properties and will rent them against the will of the owner, chosen by the city. Serena Whalen said that all the renovation costs will be billed to the owner of the property. Creation is authorized by the Hamburg Housing Protection Act 82 law that was updated by the city's socialist government in May of 2013 to enable the city to seize any residential property unit that has been vacant for more than 4 months. Lease in Germany is said to be aimed at pressuring the owners of other vacant residences in the city to make them available for rent. 1,000 rental units in Hamburg, somewhere between 1,000 and 5,000, less than 1%, are believed to be vacant, according to an estimate by the Hamburg Senate. Greens in Hamburg recently established a hotline where local residents can report vacant properties. Activists have also created a website, Lee Standminder, which translates to vacancy detector, unoccupied real estate in Hamburg and other German cities. It remains unclear why the landlord in Ham left his apartments vacant for more than 5 years. That given the location of the properties, the renovation costs may have been too high and probably would not have been offset by the rental income. Others are blaming city officials for not approving more building permits to allow for the construction of the new residential units. The study concluded in 2012, well before the migrant crisis reached epic proportions. In 2017, Hamburg would have a deficit of at least 50,000 rental properties. In 2016, however, only 2,433 new residential units, while only 2,290 new building permits were approved. Statistics provided by the city of Hamburg were up slightly from 2,192 new units and 41 new permits in 2015. Hamburg socialist government presented a 6,000 new residential units per year. The plan never materialized, however, because were constricted by government-imposed rental caps, which would have made it impossible for them to even recover their costs. The city has turned to seizing private property to resolve its self-inflicted. On October the 1st, 2015, the Hamburg Parliament approved a new law that allows the city to seize vacant commercial real estate, office buildings, and land as migrants. The measure was necessary because at the time more than 400 new migrants were arriving in Hamburg each day, and all the existing refugee shelters were full. They said that because the owners of the vacant real estate refused to make their property available to the city on a voluntary basis, the city should be given the right to take it by force. It was applauded by those on the left of the political spectrum. We are doing everything we can to ensure that the refugees are not homeless during the coming winter, said Senator Till Stephan of the Green Party. To use vacant commercial properties. Others have argued that state to seize private property are autocratic communism. The proposed confiscation of private land and buildings is a massive attack of the citizens of Hamburg, said Andre, the center-right Christian Democratic Union. To an expropriation by the state, he said the proposed measure is a lawful intimidation that amounts to a political dam break. Implications, he added. The ends do not justify any means. Haja Sudding, Free Democrats in Hamburg, said that the proposed is an unacceptable crossing of red lines. Such coercive measures will only fuel against the refugees. Measures have been proposed in Berlin, but abandoned because they were deemed unconstitutional. 15 lawmakers in Berlin considered emergency legislation that would have allowed local authorities to seize private residences, asylum seekers. The proposal would have authorized police forcibly to enter private homes and apartments without a warrant to determine their suitability as housing for immigrants. The legislation proposed by Berlin Mayor Michael Mueller of the center-left Social Democrats amended Section 36 of Berlin's Public Order and Safety Law, which currently allows police to enter private residences only in extreme instances to avert acute threats of serious crime. Mueller wanted to expand the scope for warrantless inspection to include preventing homelessness. Kept secret from the public until the leader of the Free Democrats in Berlin, Sebastian Kurz, measure would violate German constitution. He said the plans of the Berlin Senate, residential and commercial property without the consent of the owner, is an open breach of the Constitution. The attempt by the Senate to undermine the constitutional rights to property and the inviolability of the home must be resolutely opposed. Both the mayor's office and the Senate appear to have abandoned their plans. Following an investigation, Gunnar, a columnist with the Berlin newspaper BZ, a strange report made the rounds at the weekend. The Senate would authorize the police to enter private homes to house refugees, will of the owner. I thought it was only satire, then a misunderstanding, because the basic law, Article 13, states a home is. So I went on a search for the source of this strange report and found it. Proposal, which the Senate Chancellery circulated among the senators. The Senate Chancellery is another name for the mayor's office. The permit secretary is Bjorn Born. The proposal is clear. The police can enter private property without a court order in order to search for housing for refugees when these are threatened with homelessness. You can do that without the consent of the owner, and not only should the police be allowed to do this, but also the regulatory agencies. The proposal attracted little public attention. Only Berlin FDP General Secretary Sebastian Kurz warned of an open preparation for breach of the Constitution. Internally, there should have been protests. The proposal suddenly disappeared from the table. Or will it return? It remains unclear why no one has challenged the constitutionality of the Hamburg expropriation law. Germans are asking, what is next? Will authorities now limit the maximum amount of living space per person and force those with large apartments to share them with strangers? The next article, Free Thought Project. Waiting for the hamster. The NSA over global malware attacks says they could have easily prevented it. Get it to scroll up a little bit here. There's some video in this. Watch the video. I'm going to try to get it to shut down so that I can read the article. Just one day after U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order to improve the country's national security against cybersecurity threats, nearly 100 countries, including the United States, were hit ransomware cyber attack, an attack that former National Security Advisor contractor Edward Snowden is blaming on the NSA. Known cyber attacks in the history of the world demanded frozen computers all across the globe buy Bitcoin and pay in Bitcoin to have their computers released. That on Friday affected and infected across the globe, hitting the UK's National Health Service the worst, according to some reports. The server, which hosts the Free Thought Project's website, we experienced outages an hour before reverting back to our backup server country. Carried out by unknown assailants, Snowden said had been prevented. In a series of tweets, Snowden attacked his former employer squarely on the backs of the NSA, demonstrating the serious nature of the attacks. The whistleblower emphasized lives were on the line in the latest cyber attack. Used in this hack were released online last month to the NSA. The grave danger posed by the NSA's spying and irresponsible nature, tweeted a gov to build attack tools targeting U.S. software now threaten the lives of hospital patients. Leaked malware tool created by the NSA, which attacked the UK's hospital system. On the NSA, despite warnings, NSA Gov built dangerous attack tools that software. Today, we see the cost. Graham Cluley, expert, saying the U.S. intelligence agency found a security hole in Microsoft software, and rather than doing the decent thing and contacting Microsoft, they kept it to themselves and exploited it for the purposes of spying. Themselves got hacked, and it was at that point Microsoft thought a patch against this thing. As the patriot he claims to be, Snowden then called on Congress to call the NSA to the carpet and demand they acknowledge, address, and shore up vulnerabilities in other systems. He said in a tweet, Congress needs to be asking NSA Gov any vulnerabilities in software used in our hospitals. The whistleblower had called if NSA Gov had privately disclosed the flaw, attack hospitals when they found it, lost it, this may not have happened. Blame, according to Snowden, lies with the NSA. And follow-up tweet, the former NSA contractor agency should have approached the hospital system privately and revealed the Microsoft vulnerability years ago instead of letting the tool fall into the wrong hands and jeopardize lives. This is a special case. Had NSA Gov disclosed the vulnerability when they discovered it, hospitals would have not months to prepare. That Microsoft is not or is no longer providing updates and patches to its Windows XP platform. The security agency had a fiduciary responsibility to shore up any and all known vulnerabilities within XP. NSA builds a weapon to attack Windows XP, which Microsoft refuses to patch, and it falls into enemy hands. Would the NSA write a patch? Say Snowden's last suggestion makes a lot of sense. Microsoft continued support for its aging platform, but when it didn't, NSA could have stepped in and provided such a security patch, or at the very least informed people of the flaw. Words appear to haunt his former employer in the ground-shaking documentary of 2014. Snowden went on camera to tell the world just how powerful the NSA systems were. Americans and world citizens alike of the dangers of cyber warfare. The world being arguably his predictions would become. The switch has been flipped and the world is at war. And the only problem is no one who's pulling the switches. But according to Snowden, how to fix it. The article that I have for you this morning is off of World Journalism. It says, first you got it, then you don't. Hang on a second. We'll get it back up here. There it goes. And hamster's running. Tillerson signs environmental accord, Arctic Circle. Gets her organized here. I'll read that one for you. Coming up here now. Scroll up here so I can read it. Taking middle ground on the explosive issue of climate change, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson Thursday signed an international declaration climate change poses to the Arctic, while also telling foreign partners the United States will develop its own climate change action plan. President Donald Trump has indicated he is skeptical of the connection between climate change and has announced is considering withdrawing from the Paris Agreement, which formerly considered one of his major achievements. During a Fairbanks, Alaska meeting, which is made up of indigenous peoples of the region and 8 countries that border the Arctic Circle, Tillerson signed the Fairbanks Declaration, a joint document that had been in the works in the final months of the Obama administration. Fairbanks Declaration said the Arctic is warming at more than twice the rate of the global average, resulting in widespread social, environmental, and economic impacts, and notes the pressing and increasing need for mitigation actions resilience. Tillerson said signing the document should not be construed as a major policy shift. The U.S. would continue to be vigilant in protecting the fragile environment in the Arctic. To outline the Trump administration still developing the video in this, if you want to pull it up and take a look at the video. Because in the United States, we are currently reviewing, whoops, he got ahead of me here just a little bit. In the United States, we are currently reviewing several important policies, including how the Trump administration will approach the issue of climate change. We're appreciative that each of you should know that we are taking the time to understand your concerns, he said. Rush to make a decision. We're going to work to make the right decision for the United States, he added. Although the document into force of the Paris Agreement on climate change and its implementation, reported that it was told by a State Department official that the Fairbanks Agreement does not require the United States to enforce the Paris Agreement. The document was praised by fellow nations and some Alaska-based groups. We came to a really good place in our statement, and I think that says something really important to the world, said Canadian envoy Freeland, addressing the American delegation. I know that it took some effort to get there, so thank you very much, she says. There were a lot of fears and concerns before we got here, Swedish Foreign Minister Margot said later. A worst case scenario could have been that they would have this meeting, that they would leave the Paris Agreement. this declaration is a meaningful step in the evolution of the Trump administration's approach to climate change issues, says Michael Levine in Alaska for the nonprofit Oceana. The United States has the opportunity and obligation to lead efforts to reduce climate impacts and to ensure the long-term sustainability of Arctic Ocean ecosystems. For you this morning, if you like what I'm trying to do here, give it a thumbs up. Media so everybody gets to hear the news. To subscribe if you haven't done that. That way you'll stay informed.